The Battery Buzz podcast is brought to you by H.B. Fuller Company. H.B. Fuller is one of the battery industry's leading suppliers of adhesive, encapsulant, coatings, and sealants for the EV and battery industry.
Hello and welcome to Battery Buzz, the show for battery professionals by battery professionals, keeping you connected to what's new with batteries and the people who help build them. Your battery specialist hosts today are Elizabeth Canaz and me, Jermaine Maria Salvaraj, and we're back for our next episode. So let's get started. I want to say thank you to everyone for joining us this week. Today we have a very special guest, Chris Maksym from IOR. So we're very thrilled to have Chris on the podcast so he can share his insights about IOR's mission in the battery space. And we're looking forward to a fun, engaging discussion and learning more about kind of the unique designs that Chris and IOR works on. So thank you so much for being with us, Chris. It's such a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you both.
Yep, it's great to have you. So I'll give a little background on Chris. Chris is a seasoned engineer consultant who specializes in solving complex product development challenges. He has over 19 years of experience in mechanical engineering. Chris has honed his skills in machine design, mechatronics automation, valve spring design and manufacturing, digital signature, industrial computers, kiosks, touchscreen technology, sheet metal design and programming, plastic injection molding, systemization, medical automation, medical devices, startups, patents, and lastly but not least, machine tool retrofits. So that's a pretty extensive portfolio.
Yeah.
I have been around the block, I guess, if you say.
A couple times.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, fun fact about Chris is outside of engineering, he's passionate about racing and testing vehicle performance. So you can tell us a little bit more about this hobby that you have?
Yeah, so actually that's how IOR actually started. It actually stands for Independent Off-Road Retrofitted. And eventually I'll get to that portion of the business in the future. Just life challenges and some things have gotten kind of in the way of that particular portion of the business. But I love racing and off-roading. So that's kind of where I started when I was at Michigan Tech. That's where I got the passion from. We did a lot of that stuff up in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it would just really open my eyes to everything that goes into a vehicle and everything that is, required to get you to those extreme places in the UP of Michigan. And it just really made me think about where I wanted to go with my life and, the type of career that I wanted to have in engineering. Mechanical engineering is kind of that granddaddy, and it kind of encompasses electrical, civil, all these different types of engineering disciplines. And that's where I wanted to be. And that's where I am today. And I'm really passionate about doing retrofits in general. So across multiple disciplines, multiple industries. So that's where I'm at today.
Well, awesome. That's really exciting. So did you start like building in your garage, or how did this come about? Or did you join like a club or a team?
Yeah, back in college, I built my Ford Explorer, and I basically lifted that and used that at Michigan Tech. Had that for many, many years. And then after I graduated college, I went into racing my Mustang, was able to do a lot of different retrofits, in the garage, on the ground, on the floor. We did a lot of different things at like uncle's houses, uncle garages, some of my classmates' garages. We kind of just fixed everything. And one of the coolest things we did is, throughout the, Michigan Tech and having the off-road club, is we were able to go on a lot of really fun trips up there.
That's pretty cool.
I imagine if Fast and Furious franchise is ever going to do a UP drift,
yeah,
you're the first call, Chris.
Yeah, there you go.
What is it, like Fast and Furious 18?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
exactly.
We're going to circle back to the United States.
Definitely enjoy going fast. Definitely enjoy off-roading just because of what you get to see on the road, and nature in general.
That's cool. What's your like craziest off-roading experience?
My craziest off-roading experience was probably here in Michigan, sand dunes, the Silver Lake sand dunes, correct me. And so there's this hill. It's the first hill that you see, and it's called Test Hill. It's usually that hill most people just turn and come back down because they can't make it up. And
Yeah.
one year I had made it up backwards in my Explorer, and I wanted to test it out the second time for another year in a row, because that's just unheard of to go backwards up the hill. I mean, most people can't make it going forwards up the hill. And yeah, that didn't go well. Let's just put it that way. I broke a CV shaft, and in the process of driving to the pit area, my entire front wheel fell off. So
Oh,
I
no.
spent like 8 years. Bear in mind, this was during like Father's Day weekend and everything, and we were kind of traveling with, for Father's Day and whatnot. And my dad had to come help me, and we busted it out. Took 8 hours to fix it, and drove it back to Ludington. We were staying, and it was a good experience. Definitely a fun Father Day experience. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
Father-son bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he would call it that, but hey, it is what it is.
There you go. Well, that's awesome. So Chris, I know we'd kind of like to learn a little bit more about IOR. So I know you've kind of gone through kind of the origins of the company and where it started. Can you tell us a little bit more and kind of what makes IOR so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So IOR is an engineering consulting company, really focusing on solving complex problems and battery design challenges. So we work with a range of different clients that many different places within their product development process. So what really makes us unique is that we can kind of come in at any stage, help them from ground up all the way to production if needed, with designing, prototyping, concepts all the way up to that prototype or production end. In addition, we offer, designing, testing, validation, and failure analysis across like a lot of different industry sectors. It's not just battery, but that's kind of my niche right now because that's just what's out there today in engineering, and it's really exciting because you get to really develop really amazing products. Another thing is we kind of have this really big professional network I've developed, and this hands-on approach where it allows us to really quickly design, prototype, and get our clients' product to production.
So what do you think, like out of all of that, what do you think that differentiates you from other consultants, out of all the things that you name, what do you think is the most critical aspect?
So I think one of the biggest ones is having to deal with like a larger design firm where we're just a couple different people. I have a very large professional network I deal with, that we can kind of grab the right person for the exact task at hand for that particular client's need, which really helps streamline the process. And additionally, we can like curve a lot of the larger costs that a design firm have. But not only that, like some of these design firms are charging really large amounts of money per hour, and they only provide one portion of the project. They don't provide like a streamlined process from the full design conceptual stage all the way to a product, and not missing anything along that stage.
So you're cheaper, you're faster, and that's really important, especially in today's market, specifically in the battery market. So I think those are some great benefits that your clients get from working with you.
Yes, very competitive.
Well, even the network, like you said, I mean, we've worked together in a couple of projects, right? And
Yeah.
so you can kind of tell like the relationship that I think and everyone at IOR has with your clients. It's a little bit more personalized, and you can kind of so we definitely experience that on our end as kind of you being the liaison. That was very much clear. So, and I think it just makes for a better design overall, right? When you have that open line of communication.
Absolutely. It's kind of like that product development person that really stays in there, and they're that project manager helping everybody kind of stay in line and organized in a great fashion. Like you said, very personable. It really does help the process, because then there's no disconnect between information, helps everybody in line, get the product developed quickly, and all the questions answered quickly. Because as you remember with our last client, we were in a very quick timeline just to get everything done, and it was very successful. So
yeah, especially in an industry that is so it's so different for everyone, at least like on the battery side, kind of having that person that has the visibility to multiple different designs. Like we're kind of in that unique position, right? Where our material goes into so many different designs. It kind of lets us see everything, which I think just makes us stronger. And kind of likewise for IOR, right? Kind of being able to have that visibility to a lot, especially in an industry so new, it just makes you more knowledgeable and like more helpful, I'd say, to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a learning experience actually with the last client that we had as well. Just because they were a new startup and they had a very quick timeline to get from each stage, and it was a new learning experience for me, because I was always like, hey, it's got to be perfect each time before we get to that stage. But really, they were just like, let's make it 1% better and 1% better. And at the end, it turned out to be perfect.
So can you tell us maybe some cool projects that you've worked on? Because I know we get to see some really cool stuff on our end. So I'm curious to see, what was some of your highlight projects that you got to work on?
Yeah, so I guess right now, I just partnered with a new company here in Michigan, New Ice Age blasters. They make these really cool, similar to sand blasters, but it uses dry ice. And right now,
Huh.
we've been kind of hired and created into this new niche I'm going to get into, and it's called interactive spare parts catalog. So basically, how you go and you can buy a part, but it has these massive exploded views. I'm working with them to create a huge catalog for them, and to basically just support the right to repair and bring back something that I'm very passionate about. Bring back, made in USA products, and have them be serviceable by end users here in the United States and abroad.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's one of my new niches I'm getting into right now and working on with that client as we speak. I have also just finished up a project with Figure AI, the humanoid company that is blowing everybody's minds. And it was a very amazing project that we worked on actually with HP Fuller. And there's some other amazing things that came out of that. We were able to basically help them reconfigure their battery modules and produce a 50% uptime on previous humanoid figure one. So it was an amazing improvement from the first generation to the second generation. And I had a really great opportunity to work with one of our battery integrators, Resistacap Energy Products, in Tampa, Florida. And it was just an amazing co-develop engineering opportunity that we had.
Yeah, and it's like the future is here.
Yeah, it really blew our minds, and there was an amazing amount of work done there with them. I think we were on the project for like a year and a half, and it was amazing. They've recently everything for Figure 3 is going all in-house. They're growing like crazy. I wish them the best. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with them, and always welcome them back if they ever needed any help.
Well, awesome. Yeah, I know I got to see the robot hand iterations, like all the versions of that and how they've evolved over time. So that was really interesting. So it's really cool to see, the improvements, that you see over time, and the innovation that people figure out how to make it function and work better. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is really amazing, and that's kind of like their mindset about it. They're going to have three different like they already have. I think it's going to be coming out here shortly. They'll have three versions by the time most people only would have one revision done, and that's based on the type of mindset they have about engineering and getting products quickly to market. And it was a really good learning experience for myself. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, so on that note, kind of about the innovation constantly changing and how fast it is based on the industry, I guess when you kind of have a client come to you with, whatever they're trying to do, I guess how do you try to drive that innovation or like in your designs when you're talking to clients? Is it kind of more based on their needs, or are there kind of certain things that you're trying to do with every client because you're in that unique position where you can see like industry trends?
Yeah, so I mean, it really comes down to kind of like first of all, what exactly are they after? And the biggest thing that I look at is it really starts with, an understanding of how things are built and manufactured. We have some really good knowledge of key manufacturing processes, tolerancing, which allows us to from the very beginning, you know, uh, from the very beginning, accommodate, all those particular things so that they're not something that we have to change down line. It's right at the beginning of the prototype concept stage. And that gives us a really good confidence because a design isn't like innovative unless it can be manufactured. There's,
Yeah.
a really big, thing about that. And, my diverse experience and just being in a lot of different industries gave me a lot of practice of how things are built and manufactured. And that comes down to like plastic injection molding, sheet metal designs, weldments, you name it. There's just so many different things out there. And that's what helps us be very, concept driven, but also drive the innovation at the beginning. One of my very favorite things to do is to draw inspiration from other industries and often sometimes nature, because nature has some of the most awesome examples. One being the eggshell. Okay. It shows, how nature creates strength with minimal material, right? Its thin dome structure is like really, really structurally sound by, distributing stress and support. It even though it's like really, really fragile, it does exactly what it needs to do and only for that application, right? So when we start bringing those types of principles into our way of engineering, you can look at it as like inspiration for, like a lightweight yet resilient battery enclosure and protective casings, efficient, strong, purpose-built type of product, not too over-designed, just what you need for the product that they're looking for.
That's a really interesting concept. I thought you were
Yeah.
going to go the chicken or the egg at first. I wasn't sure where you were going. But no,
Yeah.
that's really impressive.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a unique thought process, which is it's fascinating.
You
Well,
made
if it
such a
works
good
in,
point though, Chris.
yeah,
Like innovation means nothing if you can't make it, so that it can be actually realized in the world, that's such a good point. There's so many things that it's just pie in the sky, and I think we'll get there. The battery technology was probably the same like, 20, 30 years ago, but it means nothing if we can't actually see it through.
yeah. And that's where nature comes in, and just its organic shapes of different things. You can use that as an advantage when you're going to the inspiration side and drive innovation moving forward. If it works in nature, it's going to work in your product. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good point.
Well, we appreciate your insights there. So we have a little section of our Battery Buzz podcast that we call Battery Banter. And today we're going to be talking about lithium-ion batteries and the impact of import tariffs on them. Are tariffs helping the U.S. manufacturers, or are they short-circuiting progress. So I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on that. I know this is a super hot button right now. So just interested in to see your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think that the tariffs are really giving U.S. battery makers a real shot by raising the cost of imported batteries, right?
Mhm.
That's just going to happen. And, we don't know really where these tariffs are kind of going, but, especially ones coming from China, everybody knows the information, everything pretty much comes from there. But it really kind of levels the playing field for, companies like GM, Ford, and even new players like Our Next Energy. They're right here in the United States, and there's some other ones that are actually, have cells that are built right here in the United States, which even makes it specifically better, especially if it's government, type of applications. They only require you to have, U.S. based cells. So I think it's only going to help on both sides of the aisle, if you will. And I think that for consulting, it helps us too, because I deal with a lot of different battery integrators. I got a couple here in Michigan. I've got a couple in Florida that I work with, and it really just helps us, instead of them going overseas for those types of, services, we're going to be able to do them right here in the United States.
I think it's awesome that you see a benefit. You're seeing it yourself, because I think a lot of people are kind of scrambling right now. So I think it's great to have a positive story on all that's going on. So that's good to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. There is a catch though. We still really are heavily dependent upon those imported battery cells. But, I think it gives us, a really good opportunity to kind of, scale up quickly and efficiently. And you see a lot of this business coming back to the United States, and bringing manufacturing back to the United States. And, I think there's a lot of opportunity with, U.S. based, American made products here in the United States for a lot of the things that currently already exist on the market, but we're not getting the quality that we deserve. We're not getting certain other things that I know the U.S. based economy can bring.
Yeah, I think, I think I read somewhere, I think it is California actually, where I think last year or in the last quarter on the road, like 40% of the electric vehicles on the road in California was made outside of the US, right? So I think shifting that number down uh, is favorable. And so if this helps, in the long term, I think that's for the best for everyone. And I think there's some promise, right? Like is it 6 or 7 manufacturing facilities that are currently expanding in Georgia alone? And so I think if we can continue that, and there continues to be motivation for them to build that manufacturing here, there is a benefit. But like you said, Chris, we're still so dependent, just limitation on the chemistry and that side of things. We're still so dependent on those rare earth metals, the cobalt, the lithium that come outside of the United States. So it's definitely some positives and negatives. It'll be interesting to see how well it's executed in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
did see a company, a sodium ion company. I can't remember the name of it, like a couple weeks ago, just they dismantled that project. They said it's not a viable option for cells. I wish I can remember the name of that company, but anyway, so that was kind of a little bit disheartening, but I think we can figure it out. We can figure out a way to get there. And I think it's hopefully going to bring innovation and excitement back to the US market, where, we'll have to figure things out and work smarter, not harder kind of mentality. So I think that's a good thing. I did see today that there was possibly the US was going to give I think it was a 3,200% tariff increase on solar panels coming from Asia. I was like, oh my God. I mean, that'll give us, I know that the US solar market has always struggled there. So definitely give the US an advantage on that.
I also do think though that there still needs to be that benefit from the regulation side and from the government to make it incentivize companies to actually pursue those technologies. That doesn't really mean much if they don't prioritize kind of like the clean energy movement here. Because if that step takes a step backwards, then I think everything takes a step backwards. So yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see how we handle that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it is an ongoing thing. It's a relatively new economy, and what's happening there, and I really hope that they do figure it out, and bring a lot of the manufacturing back home in the United States. And I think that even current battery manufacturers that already are in China and in different countries like India and these other places where they manufacture, I think that they're all for bringing plants into the United States and producing them here as well. So I think there's an amazing opportunity for that as well.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of that right now, of, foreign manufacturers like trying to move super fast to get their plants up and running and get US source products into those plants as quickly as possible. Some are like by the, Q3 of this year. So definitely seeing a drive in that, from my perspective. And then I think, Jermaine, you had a great point about the incentives, because I think a lot of those incentives have been taken off the table. So there's a lot of pause in the drive for that, clean energy kind of direction that we were moving forward and so quickly.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But to both of your point, that, it is a promise. It's promising that, like, I think it was Hyundai, right, that kind of released that statement the day that the 25% tariff came out, that they were going to build that plant in Georgia, right? So it's definitely a good sign that these foreign companies are still, in response to what's happening, kind of, like you said, accelerating what they can do here domestically. So, if it truly was a terrible thing, I think we would have seen everyone trying to pull out. So hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah, and we don't want to be too dependent, on these energy sources, batteries in general, on foreign nations as well. We want to have our own stock, amount here to be able to use in our products, and I think it's only going to help drive innovation, but also technology. Like, I just recently leased a Mach-E Mustang just because I needed to know the difference between, ICE engine versus a hybrid to an electric vehicle, and really develop my own opinions by driving and an experience myself. And I love my hybrid that I had, beautiful car, and I love my electric. And I think that, in the future, the near future, maybe even, in the next 10 years, we're going to see hybrids of hydrogen and electric combining to make the ultimate, clean energy solution.
Well, we'll see. We'll have you back here in a couple of years and
Yeah.
see if
Great.
your prediction came true.
I really look forward to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. It's very innovative because, yeah, like you said, it's usually that getting into the production is the struggle. The innovation side, we know we'll get there. There's so many smart people looking into this. It's, can we actually make it and produce it? So
Matter of time, that's all.
yeah, well, the hybrid model makes sense.
Yeah, I like it.
Cool. Well, Chris, I think that's all the time that we have today. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. It's been truly insightful, kind of what you've seen in the industry. I think you're in such a unique position that you get to basically see every cog in the wheel as far as a manufacturing process goes, especially in this cutting edge market. So I feel like we could talk to you for hours about what you've seen, and we would barely scratch the surface. But thank you for being with us today.
Really appreciate both of your time today and having me on this show, and I really appreciate you both.
Thank you. Well, yeah, so that's all for today's podcast. So join us next month. So we have another episode of the Battery Buzz podcast, and we're going to have a special guest star, Daniel Lee from Flex and Gate, and he's going to give us his insight on the battery space.
Great. So if you have comments or questions on today's discussion, feel free to comment and give us your insights. Please subscribe, like, and follow, and check out our electrical battery adhesives page on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.